is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Well, we have reached 5 clowns on the Bozo meter as we move through the middle of the week. It is Wednesday, June 30th, 2021, and you're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, coming to you from atop the Murchison Building in downtown Wilmington, overlooking the Cape Fear River in Battleship, North Carolina. 910-299-7535 is our number if you'd like to call into the show here until 10 o'clock today, Thursday, Friday, moving into the Independence Day weekend. A little later on in the show, Richard Battle, who joins us every Wednesday inside our third and final block of the program from the freedom-loving state of Texas, will join us to give us his thoughts on Independence Day, and as we continue to twist, turn, and try and change the days that have come before us, 2+ centuries now in the books, which is a relatively short time when you talk about world history and the state of a nation, and how, in Richard's eyes, given the testament, the fortitude, and the risk that our founding fathers took 200 some odd years ago to form this union, how in our current state he believes that, well, we're not worthy of the efforts that were put forward so many years ago to create the opportunity this nation has provided for millions upon millions upon millions of people over the brief history of the United States of America. As I kicked off the show just a minute ago, I said we've reached 5 clowns on the Bozo meter. You don't have to look very far if you keep an eye on the news of the day, and in fact, those who bring us the news of the day. I made brief mention of it yesterday in our conversation with Tom Goolsby, surrounding multiple national news outlets here in the country singing the praise of the Communist Party in China this week as the Chinese Communists recognize 100 years of rule over its people in the Far East. Go to ABC News and you will find a video once again praising communism in China in the week leading up to our nation's Independence Day. Folks, these people are not your friends. Whether it be the corporations, the corporate donors, well, hell, some involved within the first family of the United States of America, when you look at investments, when you look at how Chinese spies have been able to infiltrate certain members of our political class, potentially compromising sensitive intelligence data, well, there's no doubt the elites, those who have this globalist viewpoint, by the way, when you push these forms of government and these ideas and theories on the masses, the elites rarely impacted the 1%ers that do a great job of stirring the pot and pointing the finger at everyone to bring us to a divisive conclusion, as they typically do, in the spin cycle and day to day, when regurgitating tired ideas and talking points that have been used for decades to point towards differences between the masses rather than gather based on similarities to work towards, well, a word that was used quite often when President Biden was delivering his inauguration address, that term unity. Go to ABC News and check out the 2-minute video praising communism and the rise of the Communist Party in the Far East. No mention, of course, of the millions upon millions of people that this idea of communism, frankly, has killed millions upon millions of people while painting this picture of utopia. China, party time, the headline. China recognizes 100 years of communist rule in its nation with a night of political theater. Friend of mine from the central part of the state, as I posted this on my Facebook page yesterday, he commented and said, you know, watching the video, it reminded me of an award show in Hollywood. And hell, I wouldn't be surprised if the night of political theater in China was written and directed by a Hollywood producer. And who knows? The dramatic political ensemble may even be up for an award next season at the Tonys. At this rate, the way in which we're going, that video moving into our nation's Independence Day, truly despicable and disgusting, but not surprising. 5 clowns on the bozo meter. The date is June 30th. The year is 2021. And in the state of Nevada, a transgender man has won the Miss Nevada pageant. You have a viral video making its way around the internet this week where a woman out in California took her kids, her daughters, to a spa for a few hours of relaxation. And, well, the vibe, well, it quickly changed when a woman with male parts decided he was going to strip naked in the women's section of the spa. An obviously irate and distraught customer goes to the counter and says, listen, there's a dude dressed like a female walking around naked in the women's section of the spa. And you'd figure, well, then that place of business would say and offer many apologies and work towards mitigating the situation. Well, no. In fact, the place of business went on to defend the woman with male parts as one of the customers records the conversation. Then you get another beta male involved, a bystander, trying to sort out the situation. This woman obviously distraught by what she and her kids just witnessed. And while the male went on to defend the woman with male parts walking naked in the women's section of the spa. I know it's 15 minutes past 7 o'clock. It's just, once again, we repeat, the date is June 30th, 2021, and these are the sorts of things that have become commonplace across our nation. You know, you would think progressives, liberals from all over the country would be flocking to a place like California by the tens of millions. I mean, it's everything they have ever wanted and, in fact, have voted for over the past 4 decades. But for some odd reason, tens of thousands of people continue to flee the utopian state of California. In fact, I often make mention of them. I have family members that have now relocated to the Gulf Coast of Florida from Orange County. Yet they continue to have this progressive mindset where They somehow, some way believe the ways in which California has operated and essentially has forced them out of their home state. They believe that the politicians and the policies that they support are the way to move forward. Yet for some odd reason, they fled utopia. It's like they actually proved that their policies don't work, but continue to support many of the things that has ruined a state like California. Also out on the West Coast, we've got audio. Don't know if we'll get to it this morning, but a passionate plea by a chief of police as his city council cuts funding to his department. Oakland Police Chief LaRon Armstrong spoke this week after the city council voted to cut millions of dollars away from his department's budget amid this massive crime surge. And then you've got folks like the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, in complete denial. Actually in front of a camera this week telling us that crime statistics and violence in her city are declining. I wonder how things will look on the back end of this long holiday weekend when we talk about shootings, violence, homicide, and other criminal statistics that we've come to put focus on towards the beginning of every week after you get a few days off. And a quick reminder for these fools. The wealthy, white suburbanites, they are not the ones who have to deal with the consequences of eliminating the presence of law enforcement in our cities. Yet they are the loudest when it comes to, well, completely depleting all morale within that line of work. And when you listen to this police chief, he says, listen, crime is up across the board. Homicides are double what they were last year. Carjackings, assaults, crime is up. And the last thing we should be doing right now is cutting millions of dollars from the department. I'm here to protect and serve. I'm not here to push an agenda. I'm not a politician. My job is to try and keep the citizens of Oakland, California safe. Number of homicides in 6 major cities across the country have increased compared to last year. You've seen the statistics. And, well, disproportionately affecting black people. Black people have represented a massive share of murder victims in 6 major cities through the first 6 months of the year, as the nation continues to experience a large crime surge. When you look at data and homicide reports compiled by local news outlets, data from Chicago, Baltimore, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and Indianapolis. The percentage of murder victims in Chicago that were black increased from 70% in 2020 to 81% this year. The figure increased from 60% to 90% year over year in Milwaukee. Yet Democrat leaders in most of these cities continue to push this idea of reducing police funding to cater to some of the Looney Tunes in their base. Recent poll out shows that 80% of black Americans want more police, not less, in their neighborhoods. It's amazing how the media, just a wing of the progressive, well, Communist Party, as we started the program off with, given that they are echoing the praise of Chinese communism 100 years into its existence, and millions of dead people later, when we look at China specifically. It's amazing how the media only gives voice to a very tiny minority who are able to parrot some of the far-left talking points. They're able to prop up people as the entire representation of the interests of a certain group of people. The folks you see on TV, they don't reflect everyday Americans out there who want to be safe, secure, and have opportunities to go live, work, and play. They are not your friends, folks. And let me speak plainly here before we go to break and take a call. Defund the police is a mindless seizing of the microphone to promote policies that are diametrically opposed to the interests of American citizens. Black, white, yellow, brown, no matter what you look like or where you come from. Let's just call a spade a spade. 22 minutes past the hour, 910-299-7535 is our call-in number. And caller, you're with us this morning. I hope all is well on your end.
Comrade Joe, how are you?
Oh, I'm fired up this morning, Jersey Mike. We've got, our media network singing the praise of communism heading into our nation's Independence Day. We've got women with male parts walking in through the women's section of a spa, garnering support by, the employers and the owners of these companies. You've got, a woman with man parts winning the Miss Nevada pageant. I mean, what's there to talk about? I'm not really sure.
Well, to your talking points, they won because of the latest educational tutorial I had to take for my plumbing license was that they are changing all the verbiage of bathrooms. So they've already won through legislation with the plumbing code. That's point one. And two, I've always been fascinated with Chicago. I've never been there, don't want to go, but the history and the crime has always been kind of interesting. And one thing I have learned is I'm going to bet you a beverage of your choice that the murders on the 4th of July weekend will exceed 75. I found out that the gangbangers wait to the 4th of July because with all the fireworks going on, the police cannot determine where the gunshots come from.
Well, I got to say, Jersey Mike, there are some very beautiful areas in the city of Chicago. In fact, I haven't been there in a long time, but one thing that I noticed, at least in the sections that I visited, which were more of the tourist areas and then up towards Wrigley on the north side of Chicago, was the cleanliness of the areas in which I was in. And then we moseyed on down to the south side to catch a White Sox game, and things got a little sketchy. Now, granted, I grew up walking the streets of the Bronx, going to Yankees games with a dad who was like, hey, keep up, I'm not holding your hand. So, I've been through, some sketchy situations in the day. So it wasn't necessarily surprising to me, but like any city, it's got very beautiful areas and then areas, that are kind of no-go zones. So don't be deterred from going to the city of Chicago. It is a beautiful place if you stick on the yellow brick road.
Yes, it's on my bucket list. Once I retire, we're planning on a long road trip across the country, and that's one of the spots. And also Amtrak's main hub, and we were looking to do a Amtrak Rockies trip at some point. But Buffalo, New York is actually a great city. I love that place. That I actually, the first time I went there to see my future mother-in-law, I actually had a guy get out of the car and help me parallel park because I wasn't used to it for a couple of decades. And I was like, wow, am I getting carjacked? And he goes, no, I'm helping you park. So, yeah, there are a lot of nice cities across the U.S., and I hope to see many, many more.
Man, it's a shame to see how some of them continue to deteriorate after, the government shuts down the country for the better part of a year, locks us down, takes away opportunity, particularly from people who maybe were tasting the fruits of opportunity for the first time ever, as we saw wages rising on the lowest rungs of the socioeconomic scale. That they were going to become billionaires over a 3-4 year period, but things were on the up and up. We were at near full employment across our country. A good thing. People going to work, driving the nation's economy with money in their pocket, confident in themselves. and in the direction we were moving from an economic standpoint. So what do? Well, we go back to the well, and we use a tired old argument, and then we pit each other against one another based on what we look like. We've heard this argument before, folks, and yet we continue to fall into the same trap. We're 26 minutes past the hour. I would say, Jersey Mike, if you get to Chicago, you got to go an hour and a half north to the city of Milwaukee. Visit the Pabst Brewing Company. Maybe catch a Brewers game. And in fact, the time we made it out to Chicago, went up to Milwaukee and into Cheese Country and did catch a Brewers game. And in fact, as my dad and I were going to buy tickets up at the gate, talk about, neighborly love. Guy walks up to us and says, "Hey, you going to the game?" We say, "Yeah." "You need tickets?" "Yeah." "Well, here's 4 right down the first baseline." My dad and I, who have been counterfeited before in the Bronx, well, that was a story in and of itself. Buying from some scalpers on the streets, get to the gate, and the guy says, "Yeah, these are fake." Oh, I was crushed. Dad thought we had seats right behind home plate. Yankees, Red Sox. Next thing you know, we're all the way up top. After my dad spent probably all the cash he had, got the cheap seats, and yeah, we got into the stadium, but, you live and you learn. So we were cautiously optimistic that this gentleman in Milwaukee who offered us tickets for free wasn't trying to pull a flim-flam on us. But certain areas and times of the year, I would say maybe the springtime into the summer in the Midwest, if you don't like the cold weather, that would be the time to go to a place like Chicago up into Milwaukee. And then, in fact, what we did was we drove through Michigan and into Canada and ultimately made it to Niagara Falls. That was part of a long road trip one summer. So many great experiences growing up, and we get and take pleasure in sharing those types of things as we try to recreate that now in our own home, as many of you are this summer. Rob Renz and Chase Roth are with the Veterans Business Alliance. They were up in Raleigh last week lobbying for a bill that is going to get a vote in committee today, I believe, surrounding the legalization of medical marijuana. In fact, State Senator Michael Lee and Bill Rabin of Brunswick County, both sponsors of this legislation. And very interesting that this topic has come up here in the state of North Carolina as Clarence Thomas, one of the Supreme Court's most conservative justices, said Monday that because of the hodgepodge of federal policy on weed, federal laws against its use or cultivation may no longer be or make sense. May no longer make sense. That's not to say Clarence Thomas is puffing it up in the back with Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. That's just calling a spade a spade. Many of the states are eliminating laws and penalties for the possession, the cultivation, the use of Mary Jane. So why is there some blanket federal government policy if the states are going about these decisions themselves? He said his views came as the court declined to hear the appeal of a Colorado medical dispensary that was denied federal tax breaks that other businesses are allowed. Justice Thomas said the Supreme Court's ruling in 2005 upholding federal laws making marijuana possession illegal may now be out of date. The federal government's current approach is a half-in, half-out regime that simultaneously tolerates and forbids local use. 36 states now allow medical marijuana, 18 also allow recreational use. But federal tax law does not allow businesses that dispense to deduct their business expenses. So this is an interesting conversation, and yeah, I know, we're in the South. What we once knew as the Bible Belt. And some folks, make the argument, and with valid points, oftentimes, surrounding the use of marijuana. Well, Rob Renz and Chase Roth are going to deliver a passionate speech to you in just a little while, echoing some of the things that they said. Two men who served in our country and have dealt some serious blows, not necessarily themselves, but of their brothers in arms. As Chase made mention of during this committee hearing last week, that he has more brothers he served with, contact information in his cell phone, brothers who have taken their own lives because of one reason or the other, back here in the States, has lost more brothers who have served due to suicide than he did while in a combat situation in service to our nation. And he believes, along with a few politicians in our state, that straying away from the opioids, the pain pills, the prescription drugs, and moving towards, a plant in the ground might be a better tool to help suppress some of the symptoms that many of our veterans deal with day to day when facing post-traumatic stress disorder. We'll hear from State Senator Michael Lee in the second hour of our program as well. Rob Renz, Chase Roth, Signal Fire Media, and the Veteran Business Alliance. They'll be with us in about a half hour from now. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show.
Well, I started out down a dirty road. Started out all alone, and the sun went down.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Hey guys, what if I told you that your wedding day could be the happiest day of your life, even if it rained?
You sound like the weatherman.
Better, Jordan. I'm a jeweler with the most amazing guarantee in the diamond business. If you buy your diamond engagement ring from us at Perry's Emporium and it rains on your wedding day, your ring is absolutely free.
It's the Perry's Emporium legendary rainy day diamond guarantee.
No other jeweler in Eastern North Carolina has a larger selection of loose diamonds, diamond engagement rings, and wedding bands than Perry's Emporium, all at the guaranteed lowest price. Perry's Emporium in beautiful Barkley Commons behind Henry's and on the web at perrysemporium.com.
We'll see you when you get here.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
"24 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. Statewide, it never ceases to amaze me the way in which Governor Cooper can twist it, turn an argument, and of course, immediately garner praise from his cohorts in the spin cycle, particularly within the Raleigh-based news outlets. So, of course, we know that Republicans here in North Carolina, across much of the country, are calling to eliminate these extra unemployment benefits that the federal government has provided for the better part of a year now after they locked us down, which still just it makes me all squirrely inside. The government locked us down. What was it last year? The president at the time took part in this 4th of July celebration up in South Dakota at Mount Rushmore. And he highlighted an idea that he would have liked to see implemented in this time of, divisiveness, mainly created by the spin cycle and those who benefit most from, working class, white, black, brown, yellow people at each other's throats for this, that, and the other. It's the white progressives, the elitists, and those with a globalist mindset, of course, that benefit from all of this, not you and me, the everyday working man and woman. They're not your friends, folks. And in many cases, both sides of the political aisle. But Republicans making this call over the last several weeks, listen, we're out of the woods. We need to get back to normal. We need to stop incentivizing this idea of staying home. Or if you play the system right, well, in some places across the country, you could earn like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year and could have done that over the past year by remaining unemployed. Well, now, after a year of refusing to work with Republicans here in North Carolina, well, the governor has now passed the ball to the North Carolina Council of State in regards to a decision on a moratorium that has been in place preventing landlords from evicting their tenants if they're unable to stay current with their rent. The political posturing of this guy never surprises me. I mean, he's a good old boy through and through, knowing full well that his friends in the media will never call him out on it. In fact, headline from one of our local news outlets over at WECT, Council of State members revoke extension of evictions protection. So after more than a year of refusing to work with the Council of State on his executive orders to shut down the state, to prevent private bars from reopening, but allowing breweries, wineries, other sorts of restaurants to go forward with opening their doors, now the governor uses the friendly media outlets to push this narrative that it's the Republicans ending all of these sweeteners and protections for people that are suffering because of the pandemic. I mean, he's good. You're good. He's good. And of course, it receives no sort of pushback from the media throughout the course of this pandemic on, following the quote-unquote science and the data. And how quickly the media turns this conversation into, look, Republicans are ending all of your protections. They hate poor people. Oh, by the way, they're racist and bigots as well. So for the past year, Governor Cooper has argued that what is known as the Emergency Management Act, which gives him, pretty much free rein under his eyes to do what he pleases when it comes to the state of emergency that we remain in here in North Carolina, that he pointed to this Emergency Management Act as reasons to why he was not required to work with other statewide elected officials in creating executive orders, restrictions, and other sorts of headlines that were garnered throughout the course of the last year because of COVID, as he issued executive orders changing the way of life for millions of people. But now, as Republicans push to end the extra federal unemployment benefits in our state, like 24 others have already done, now he wants political insulation by letting the Council of State take the blame for revoking this executive order that protects tenants from eviction. State Treasurer Dale Folwell, who is a member of the Council of the State, voted to end this protection and says, hey, there have been multiple extensions that the governor has ordered by himself over the course of the last several months. And that at this point, decisions regarding this specific issue should be returned to property owners. And what are we seeing across the rest of the country as far as states that have ended the extra supplements provided by the federal government as it relates to unemployment benefits? Well, the 26 states that have announced their plan to end participation, this article at fee.org, FEE.org, we highlight the work over there at the Foundation for Economic Education on a near daily basis on this program, because it's not a website that you necessarily hear every day, but the articles that are published on a day-to-day basis provide you more information and insight than you'll ever get on the Alphabet Soup networks and throughout the cable spin cycle. The 26 states that have announced their plan to end participation in the $300 weekly unemployment bonus, the states that have ended participation in this federal program, have seen a near 13% decline on average in initial jobless claims over the past week. Meanwhile, states that have indicated they will continue participating in the unemployment bonus programs have seen an increase in initial claims by an average of nearly 2% during the same time period. The 12 states that have officially opted out of the weekly bonus thus far have seen consistent declines each week since ending participation in the bonus program provided by the federal government. So what do you know? You take the incentive away with plenty of employment opportunities out there, and people get back to work. How about that? No one saw it coming. So instead of questioning, of course, or criticizing, and not even criticizing, because that's not your job if you're a news reporter, a journalist with a capital J. Your job is to provide the content and the information and the facts, and then let us decide whether we're going to criticize a decision, applaud one, or move forward. Unless, of course, it's an editorial board or it's written out there for you that, hey, this is my opinion. But there has been no pushback over the course of the past year by many within the traditional news outlets in our state in terms of the governor's my way or the highway approach to the pandemic. Not, of course, until they're able to turn the tables and place blame on Republicans for wanting to end some of the protections that have been in place throughout the pandemic as, many of the Republican-led states push forward and move full steam ahead to try and reopen, end all the extra incentives, and try and return us to some type of normalcy. All you have to do is go to one of the local news outlets today. Council of State members revoke extension of evictions protection. Well, for the better part of the past year, we've talked about the Council of State. You never heard of the Council of State if you were tuned in to, the local news or some type of statewide outlet, you probably didn't even know the Council of State existed or who makes up this body of politicians. Well, you knew if you were tuned into this program, as we spoke with State Treasurer Dale Folwell, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, among others, State Auditor Beth Wood, who apparently, I guess, according to some up in the Raleigh area, is a racist because she and her office performed an audit on a local council member in and around the Raleigh area for somehow, some way, getting $47,000 worth of utility bills wiped clean. Somehow, some way, the state auditor who showcased that fact, well, is a racist because I guess the person who owed that money was a council member who happened to be black. Go to CarolinaJournal.com if you want more information on that story. Amazing how quickly the spin cycle can twist and turn things and immediately point the finger at, well, Republicans for all of the issues that we have in our society. I mean, look at what the Harris-Biden administration tried to pull off this week, claiming that, in fact, it's been the Republicans who have carried this defund the police narrative for the past 8 months. We're 13 minutes in front of the hour. Rob Renz, Chase Roth from the Veterans Business Alliance will be joining us here in just a bit. We'll also hear from State Senator Michael Lee. That's all a part of our 8 o'clock block. Really looking forward to the conversation with Richard Battle this morning. Richard joins us every Wednesday just after 9 o'clock, author of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times. Richard wants to honor the founding patriots ahead of Independence Day as our national news outlets praise the Chinese Communist Party. And if you think I'm, being a little far-fetched, again, go to ABC News. They, in fact, highlighted the Communist Party and its celebration of 100 years in existence in the Far East. Out in China, with a night of political theater. It was almost like a Hollywood award show. Richard says, given where we're at, the state of our nation, our founding patriots blessed us greater than our appreciation of them. Serious men who knew what they risked and why, but felt the gamble was worthwhile to create a unique place on earth where men governed themselves and individual liberty was the order of the day. They risked their lives, their fortunes, and their honor. 9 died fighting or from hardship after signing the Declaration of Independence. 12 had their homes pillaged and destroyed by the British. 5 were captured and tortured before dying. 2 lost kids. Another had 2 sons captured, and others lost their wives and fortunes. Yet, once again, June 30th, 2021, and we're providing lucrative contracts at our places of higher learning to people who want to completely distort and fabricate and reinvent some of the things that happened at the beginning of this nation's founding. In fact, protesters have been out in Chapel Hill this week, calling attention to today's UNC Board of Trustees meeting, where the hiring of the controversial 1619 Project creator Nicole Hannah-Jones will be up for discussion. The lucrative 5-year contract wasn't enough for Miss Hannah-Jones, as her attorneys alerted Chapel Hill that she would not accept the job unless it included tenure. As we spoke with Tom Goolsby about tenure yesterday, basically it insulates an employee from any sort of accountability in our places of education and gives that employee a blank canvas to say whatever they want as part of their job. under the guise of whatever title she would have in working with young journalists, aspiring journalists up in Chapel Hill. We're 9 minutes in front of the hour. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Sunshine, backyard cookouts, they're back in the forecast. And our friends at Blinds.com, they want you to soak up all of their savings with their special 4th of July Spectacular. Now up to 45% off everything. Now, whether you do it yourself or you let them handle the install start to finish, Blinds.com, they make it simple and easy. Just go to Blinds.com today for their 4th of July Spectacular. Just visit Blinds.com to shop up to 45% off everything. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Looking for a way to pay for that new home improvement you've been waiting for? Ready to consolidate credit card debt at a lower interest rate? Figure offers multiple loan options that can help you improve your finances. From mortgage refinances to home equity lines and personal loans, Figure can help you find the loan that's right for you. Figure takes all the stress and hassle out of the process. Apply 100% online at Figure.com and see your new rate in a few clicks. Figure out your finances at Figure.com. Figure Lending LLC. Equal Opportunity Lender. NMLS 1717824. Terms and conditions apply.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomeninatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
Yesterday, we spoke with New York City Councilman Joe Borelli and highlighted, of course, situations that many of our major cities are facing in regards to crime, efforts to strip funding by the millions within law enforcement. I'd encourage you to go look at this video that the police chief out in Oakland, California, portrayed yesterday, highlighting all of the crime in his city and his thoughts on elected officials in his city voting to strip his police department of millions of dollars. Oh, yeah, by the way, you may or may not have been following the primary race, the mayoral race up in New York City. Well, the Board of Elections late last night claimed they, quote-unquote, accidentally counted 135,000 test ballots in its mayoral Democratic primary. This, of course, after in the state of Pennsylvania recently, well, in one district, Republican ballots just were not counted. I mean, this is all factual information. All you have to do is go to the worldwide intraweb and you can quickly find these stories. But somehow, some way, everything was on the up and up in November of 2020. 910-299-7535 is our number. And caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Hey, Joe Fish.
Hey,
Carolina
Freddie,
Beach.
Freddie the Fish. I thought you were swimming with the fishes. I haven't heard from you in a while.
I know. I've been doing other things, but I just wanted to call in and say how much I really admired your earlier history lesson about patriots and what our founders did, and the life, liberty, property, their sacred honor. I mean, it just raised goosebumps on my arm when I heard you say that. I just think that's so swell of you to do that.
Well, it's better than singing the praise of Chinese communism in the week leading up to our nation's Independence Day. I figured, I'd go off the beaten path here, given my platform each day.
Yeah. The other thing is, you're using this euphemism about I'm calling a spade a spade. Well, hey, that ain't PC anymore, my friend. That's a euphemism for calling someone like black as the ace of spades. You can't do that anymore, man. You can't do it.
Well, thankfully, I control all the content here, the hiring and firing of this small, independently owned business, so I don't care what anyone else says. How about that?
I know you don't, but you got my point, right?
Oh, it's ridiculous. There are a couple more coming down the pipeline. In fact, I have a buddy of mine that has a running list of phrases that we're technically not supposed to use anymore because it may offend someone.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? People better worry about don't worry so much about me offending them. They better worry about offending me.
Freddie the Fish, it's always a pleasure, my friend. I hope you have a great Independence Day weekend, as I plan to experience over the next few days. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. Again, as we mentioned before we go to break, up in Chapel Hill today, the UNC Board of Trustees will be meeting to discuss this controversial hire that may or may not come into play here regarding this woman known as Nicole Hannah-Jones. Works with the New York Times, is the creator and founder of this 1619 project. And a lucrative 5-year contract worth hundreds of thousands of dollars wasn't enough for her. She wants tenure because her qualifications indicate that apparently in her eyes, she qualifies for, well, a way of life that basically insulates you from any sort of accountability within your job. And one sign during the protest on Tuesday read, quote, 1619 ... 2021, semicolon, same struggle. It was probably among one of the most unintentionally hilarious protest signs that has ever been assembled in the history of protests. Think about it. The refusal to give this famous, powerful, wealthy woman a well-compensated job that she can't be fired from. In the eyes of the protester, pretty much exactly like slavery. I mean, only in America, as I saw this meme yesterday, do you find a person wearing $150 sneakers, drinking a $5 cup of coffee, typing on a $1,000 cell phone, complaining on social media that life isn't fair and that the oppression is real and that capitalism has failed us. Here we are. Once again, the date, June 30th, 2021. Women with male parts winning beauty pageants in Nevada. Our American news networks singing the praise of 100 years of Chinese communist rule. I remind you, the year is June 30th, 2021. As we head up into our first news break of the day. Chase Roth, Rob Renz going to join us from the Veterans Business Alliance. You hear Rob on the Signal Fire radio program Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. They were up in Raleigh last week advocating for something near and dear to their hearts and garnering support from two of our local politicians and state senators, Michael Lee and Bill Rabin. They'll give us the deets after this here on the Big Talker FM.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.
condo tower collapse.
More than 200 rescuers at a time work the site. Intermittent bad weather already causing temporary delays in the search. Kevin Guthrie with the Florida Division of Emergency Management said yesterday the federal government is sending help.
We're going to bring in another team. We want to rotate those out so that we can get some resources back in case we may be dealing with some type of tropical cyclone.
Those resources include Miami-Dade Fire Rescue along with every Florida Urban Search and Rescue Task Force. The county state attorney says she will pursue a grand jury investigation into the collapse, and tomorrow the president and first lady travel to the site. I'm Julie Walker.
And the death toll is 12, 149 people unaccounted for. The focus, border security, when former President Trump visits the Rio Grande Valley today, accompanied by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Abbott has pledged to complete sections of the border wall unfinished when Mr. Trump left office. Abbott says that Texas having to endure a flood of illegal immigrants and deadly drugs and a crime wave.
A border crisis is plaguing the farmers, the ranchers, the residents of the entire border region. Fences are being mowed down. You have livestock and crops that are being destroyed. You have homes that are being invaded in neighborhoods that simply are not as safe as they used to be.
A couple dozen House Republicans will accompany Mr. Trump and the governor to the border. The dangerous heat wave that saw high temperature records shattered in Seattle and Portland in recent days has moved inland. Spokane, Washington, setting a record of 109 degrees yesterday. The heat is also on across wide areas of the Northeast. Forecasters say it will feel like 100 degrees or more later today. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Excuse me, why don't you have life insurance yet?
I've got diabetes, and I know the price will be through the roof for the pre-existing condition.
Well, actually, SelectQuote makes it easy to get very affordable life insurance, even if you have a health issue.
I'm listening.
You'll get quotes from some of the country's most trusted carriers. Even with your diabetes, you can get around $250,000 in insurance for as little as $1 a day.
That would be amazing. What's it called again?
SelectQuote. Just call or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote. Get the coverage you need at a price you can afford. Call 1-800-694-1010 or go to SelectQuote.com today. That's 1-800-694-1010 or SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Get full details on example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Monthly premiums vary based on health, company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
North Korean state media report dictator Kim Jong-un has berated top officials over lapses that caused what's termed a grave incident relating to COVID-19.
Mr. Kim's vague reference to a crucial case during his speech could indicate that COVID-19 has made its way inside North Korea. It was the first country to shut its borders at the start of the pandemic, and as of last week, the authorities continued to maintain there had been 0 COVID cases amongst North Korea's 25 million people. That claim has long been questioned by observers who say North Korean officials have barely tested anyone. It's believed North Korea's decrepit health service would be overwhelmed by the mass spread of the virus.
That's the BBC's Celia Hatton. Ethiopia's government says its military could re-enter the capital of its embattled Tigray region within weeks, calling into question the unilateral ceasefire declared just days ago. News and analysis, townhall.com. Fox News hit with a huge fine in connection with a sexual harassment case.
The fine, $1 million. It's been levied by the New York City Commission on Human Rights. The penalty is the largest that the commission has ever doled out, and it says Fox News is guilty of violating laws that protect against sexual harassment and job retaliation. This all stems from an investigation that started in 2017. The probe follows several reports of what the commission called rampant abuse at the popular news and opinion outlet. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
The United States proposing sharp restrictions on travel between the U.S. and Belarus. It is the latest fallout from the forced landing of a passenger jet in order to arrest a dissident journalist who was on board the plane. Once again on Wall Street this hour, Dow futures down 23 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Locked and loaded for the second hour of the most listened to, entertaining, and informative news talk program across southeastern North Carolina. We'll say most opinionated as well. Not afraid to hide behind the fact that we think it's a little strange in a place like a day spa that apparently in some areas around the country you can be a woman with male parts and you get away with walking around in your birthday suit in front of a bunch of little girls, and it's okay, apparently. Not one parent who went absolutely ballistic. We may play that audio for you a little later on in the program. I would say put the earmuffs on if you've got children, because it necessarily not. It's a very explicit description of what this woman and her daughters just witnessed at this California spa. What I liked most about it, not the fact that it was just a little strange that some beta male tried to get into the conversation, and the woman just put him straight in his place, and he just like walked with his head down and back into the shadows where he belongs. Where's the real men standing up and speaking out when they see a female completely distraught about a situation that she just experienced? State Senator Michael Lee going to join us in about a half hour from now. We'll also hear from Richard Battle, highlighting the founding fathers of this nation and how, in fact, well, he believes, given the state of this union, we don't deserve what the founding fathers set forth for us that this country has experienced over the last 200-plus semi-years. Right now, Rob Renz and Chase Roth from the Veteran Business Collective are with us here this morning. Fellas, it's always a pleasure. And guys, welcome back to the program. Hope all is well.
Yeah, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Rob and Chase were among a contingent of veterans from across the state and here in Wilmington that were up in Raleigh last week to advocate for a bill that moves forward the idea of legalizing medical marijuana in our state. 20-some-odd states have already moved forward with this idea. We've got 15 or 16 that have, of course, legalized recreational marijuana use. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas just came out this week and said, listen, the federal law, we're half in, we're half out. Many states are kind of going about this legalization or access to medical marijuana their own way. So maybe it's time that we get the federal government out of this. Not that, Clarence Thomas, again, is puffing a J with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh in the back, making this decision, just saying, hey, look, the federal law is outdated and is not being adhered to. So let the states decide what's best for them. Fellas, you guys, of course, both veterans to our nation. Chase, you head up the Veterans Business Collective. Talk a little bit about that organization, its mission, and what you're doing to try and grow the business community among veterans in our area.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Well, I'm the default ringleader for now, but me and Rob and a couple other guys got together last fall to start this thing, and it was an idea that we needed a local networking group for established veteran business owners, not a incubator space for tech startups like we see a lot of other places doing. And we didn't really know where it was going to go, but it's taken off like crazy. We just launched our New Bern chapter last week, and 2 weeks from now we're launching our Asheville chapter. So we're spreading out across the state, and it looks like we've got a couple maybe coming online in other states like Georgia and perhaps Texas as well. But our goal is to really just connect the veteran business community together and then leverage that community to provide a sense of purpose, belonging, and economic success and stability for veterans when they leave the military.
Chase, among your experiences as a small, independently owned business operator, Rob, you as well, is there a common denominator, among men of your ilk that are cut from your cloth, veterans that you see and or have experienced as far as some of the hurdles, hardships, the obstacles that you're overcoming to seek out this idea of being an entrepreneur and working for yourself after working for the man for so many years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone that leaves service, whether they did 4 years or they did 20 years, they all face a lot of the same challenges. And part of that is what we're trying to address at the Veteran Business Collective, and that's having a sense of purpose is important to people. And it's hard to find a sense of purpose that can compete with serving your nation. That's a pretty high calling. So you wake up every day knowing exactly what you're there for and what you're going to do. Even when it's tough, you're okay with it. So replacing that when you go to the civilian world can be a little challenging. And then, that sense of community and belonging you have when you're in the military is tough too. Entrepreneurs get that. Me and Rob have aside from the veteran connection, just both being business owners, there's that shared camaraderie of struggle that comes along with running and owning a small business. It's not a simple thing to do. So there's a lot that brings us together in that regard. But yeah, I'd say there's a lot of shared struggle.
And with that said, let's bring in Rob real quick. Rob, obviously, folks who tune into the Big Talker have heard your voice on the Signal Fire radio show, which airs Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. The focus of your organization and business at Signal Fire Media is to help kind of bridge that gap between veterans in active duty and in their transition back to civilian life. As you have gone on this journey and talking with people from all walks of life, from all different parts of the nation, what are you finding out as far as success stories, stories of hardship, how folks are coming to grips with the fact that their service to our nation is over, as Chase kind of mentioned, and now it's time to turn to a different route in their life?
Great question, Joe. Before I answer it, I just want to call to attention that Clarence Thomas didn't make those statements until after Chase's testimony up at the Capitol in Raleigh. So I'm not suggesting that he did see it or he didn't see it. I'm just saying that the timing to me is a little bit suspect that he would come out only after Chase testified up in Raleigh. But it's funny, Joe, to answer your question about transition success and try to tie all these pieces together with the Veteran Business Collective and our testimony up at the Capitol and your question related to entrepreneurship, 25% of veterans or soon-to-be veterans exiting the military say they want to start their own company. Only 4% do. 67% of newly transitioned service members will quit their first job within the first 2 years and express overall dissatisfaction. And we know specifically that the veteran community struggles with certain things after service. And I believe it all comes into that sense of belonging and that sense of purpose. Now, I'm not one who says that your identity is completely consumed by the work that you do. Like, I'm not, we talk 2021, you got to be careful because you can identify as whatever the heck you want to right now. But I don't identify as an insurance agent. You don't identify as a radio host. I mean, your entire identity isn't steeped in that. You're Joe Catanacci, and you're damn good at what you do, and so am I, and so is Chase. But our sense of purpose and our sense of belonging and our sense of meaning is rooted into something different than that. Joe, you're one of the most patriotic people I've ever known. And so if people asked you who is Joe Catanacci, you'd probably lead with, I'm an American. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm a leader in my community. Chase and I share that exact same sentiment. And through Signal Fire, through the work at the Veterans Business Collective, through every interview I've done here with you, I want to encourage that exact same message in that there's more to who you are, and it has to be anchored in principles and virtues and certain beliefs. But if it's anchored in that, you won't have the alcoholism or the depression or the suicide. You won't have the, I hate this job, I'm leaving. You'll take the risks that you want to take for yourself because you're rooted in something greater and bigger than yourself, which is exactly what we had in the military, which is what I think is lost when we get out.
Rob Renz and Chase Roth are with us here this morning with Signal Fire Media. Chase and Rob also both belong to a group that is known as the Veterans Business Collective. It's a group of veteran entrepreneurs or those maybe looking to start their own business, looking to get involved and be a part of something, moving from a life of service in our armed forces. Last week, they were garnering attention from all corners of the state of North Carolina. Rob had made mention that he was going to be up in Raleigh for a few days and, doing some this and that, asking who were some of the players up there as far as politicians that he could maybe get their ear for a few minutes to talk about a piece of legislation that will get a vote in committee today, in the committee in which both of you testified in front of just last week, the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is headed by Bill Rabin of Brunswick County. Senator Michael Lee is going to join us here in about 25 minutes. Also have sponsored this bill that, of course, would legalize medical marijuana use here in North Carolina, the way in which some 26 other states, I believe, have moved forward with that.
We'd be the 37th.
The 37th.
Yeah.
All right, 37. 36 states have already moved forward with this idea of medical marijuana use. Again, it garnered attention. I knew Rob was going to be up there, didn't necessarily know what he was lobbying for. And then I started to see social media light up last Wednesday, I believe, after they gave testimony. And Pete Callender, who we talk with from the western part of the state, was highlighting all of this. And then I quickly, got the audio of the testimony, and I said, wow. This was powerful stuff. You had one man out there, a guy who said, Rob has made mention of this. After, my service, I'm dealing with this, that, or the other. Doctors are giving me something to get up in the morning, something to go down at night, mainly based through prescriptions and medication, synthetic medication, and it had me looking down the barrel of my gun. And then of course he sought alternatives. He finds this plant that comes out of the earth, and it helps ease some of his pain. Chase, you gave one of the most eye-opening thoughts on all of this. Just kind of, if you could, echo some of the things that you made mention of as far as why you're advocating for medical marijuana legalization in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's no secret that the veteran community has a rampant suicide problem and has for years. The North Carolina veteran suicide rate is double what the national average is for suicides. And there's some 50,000 plus veteran service organizations registered in this country, and probably half of those are attempting to solve the veteran suicide issue. It's a very, very complicated, multifaceted issue. It doesn't have one simple solution, right? But the use of medical cannabis is something that we have empirical evidence that supports the fact that it prevents suicide. You heard the testimony last week from more than one veteran who went down the prescription drug route and then alcoholism, and then found themselves with a fifth of whiskey and a pistol in their hand, wondering if this was going to be the end, and turned to medical cannabis and were able to get off the alcohol, get off the prescription drugs, lock the pistol away where it belongs, and get back to living their life. So, in my opinion, if passing this bill saves one North Carolina veteran's life, then it's absolutely worth it, and it's our responsibility to make sure it happens.
Now, with that said, of course, there are opponents of this legislation, and some within the Republican caucus, unlike Senators Rabin and Lee, who have expressed support and have sponsored this proposal. And there are a lot of the same talking points that you hear year after year when this idea of legalization comes up when it comes to marijuana, that it's a gateway drug, that our kids don't need to be introduced to it at such a young age. It makes people lethargic, it kills brain cells, this, that, and the other. What's kind of your rebuttal to those who are hesitant to jump on board with this?
Yeah, I think what we noticed is there was a lot of moral equivalencies being drawn that the use of prescribed and controlled medical cannabis is going to turn Wilmington or any other city in North Carolina into San Francisco. And, one of the testimonies that was brought up was that everywhere, and this was his quote, everywhere that cannabis is legalized for medical use, you see an increase in addiction rates. Okay, but what does addiction mean? There is no lethal dose of cannabis. They've estimated that one person, in order to overdose on cannabis, would have to smoke or ingest 1,500 pounds of cannabis in one sitting before it killed them. That's not physically possible. And so, my question to those who are opponents of it, and you brought up children, all of us have young girls in this room, and I'm concerned, obviously, about every single day. I wake up and I'm concerned about the health and welfare of my daughters and those people who are close to me too as well. Let's just kind of take a look at what kids are being prescribed today by medical professionals. Jenna, my wife, is a family nurse practitioner. She sees it every day. We're putting kids on Adderall, on SSRIs, on antidepressants, and all this stuff. If you look at addiction from our generation, the three of us sitting in this room, we were the Ritalin generation. Like every young boy who couldn't pay attention in class, which was probably all of us, was prescribed some kind of amphetamine to keep us focused. But it creates addiction issues down the road because you're flooding your body with these chemicals at a very young age that we don't know how to cope with. And then down the road, it just creates addiction issues, whether that's alcohol or more medication. So my argument in rebuttal to the gentleman who said that legalizing medical cannabis will lead to an increase in addiction. Okay, yes, that's probably true. But what does addiction to cannabis really lead to? There's thousands, if not tens of thousands, of peer-reviewed medical journals that show that opiates, long-term addiction to opiates, will give you extreme cellular deterioration, and there's no quality of life after a long-term prescription to opiates. It's why at the federal and the national level, we're trying to get this opiate drug crisis, under control. So if addiction is the only argument, I think that's a pretty hollow one, because there's other things that we're giving to kids, and they're okay with that are far more lethal and far more deadly in the long term than medical cannabis. And the bill, Senator Rabin, Senator Lee did a very good job of making this a very tight and a very narrow bill. So there's no real ambiguity as to who can get this versus some of the other states that have legalized it, where there's some loose language in there as to who can be prescribed it. So I just if you're looking at it, be intellectually honest and ask yourself, okay, so addiction might go up, but what does that really mean? Does that create the same kind of addiction problems as alcohol, tobacco, or opiates? I don't think that it does.
Chase, when we talk about some of the things that veterans are dealing with, post combat, post service, just give us a little insight into what this PTSD, what kind of triggers some of these emotions and other sorts of feelings that lead to someone thinking that the only way out is to take their own life.
Yeah, absolutely. But before I get into that, I'd like to add to one point to what Rob said. Is the opposition failed to mention the fact that, maybe they see a slight increase in addiction to marijuana. They're seeing huge percentage drops in addiction to opiates in the same states at the same time. So we got to look at everything, not just isolating marijuana and cannabis. But to answer your question specifically, it's not what movies in Hollywood tend to portray PTSD as. It's not like you'd see in the movie Born on the 4th of July, where a guy has a fit and he freaks out and he thinks he's in a different environment, and next thing you know, he's rolling on the ground and that kind of stuff. It's increased levels of anxiety, maybe moments of anger where they don't really know where it's coming from. Everything around them seems good and normal and calm, and their life is good, but inside, under the skin, there's a lot of turmoil, stress, anxiety, anger issues, sleep problems, and they can't really put their finger on what's causing it, right? They don't know. And the reason they don't know and they can't put their finger on it is because it's something that's been developed over years of exposure to traumatic events. We have civilians that deal with PTSD from a car wreck or from childhood experiences. And some civilians have had horrific experiences that spanned, years or decades. And then there's others that, one car wreck can give them PTSD and have, effects for years. And you talk about a service member who has 20 plus years of service. And if you look at our post 9/11 veterans, we had one that took his life 3 weeks ago, who had 21 years of service, and he was at war in 2 theaters for that entire 21 years, from 01 to 2021. So there's going to be a lot of underlying issues that stay with a person for years after that. And the folks that I've talked to that have found cannabis to be successful for them, what they're finding is that the use of cannabis gives them the ability to just stay calm and relaxed and in the moment, and takes away the need to self-medicate with other things. So where they were turning to alcohol to get outside of their head and to feel calm and relaxed, which we all know what the long-term effects of alcohol abuse are. It ruins families. It results in drunk driving accidents and all kinds of terrible things, right? Health problems and everything else. And with properly dosed cannabis, it's not like they're sitting around getting stoned out of their minds, right? And sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and watching cartoons till 3 a.m. It's a medically prescribed dose that helps keep them in the moment and reduce that anxiety and allows them to live a functioning life.
Rob Renz and Chase Roth with us here this morning, again, coming off their testimony last week in Raleigh in advocating for this medical marijuana legalization legislation that has been proposed and sponsored by 2 of our local state senators, and Bill Rabin and Michael Lee. Senator Lee going to join us here in about 15 minutes. This proposal going up for a vote today in the Senate Judiciary Committee, as it has a few other hurdles as far as committees go that it will have to move through this legislative session if it hopes to get to the floor of the Senate for a full vote. Senator Phil Berger commented that his caucus was kind of divided at this point, but from many indications that some of the testimony that you heard here today and last week, may have twisted the arms and have changed the minds of a few who may have been on the outside of all of this. Fellas, you anticipate this vote to go your way here today, and then ultimately it will go into other committees, and I'm sure you will be summoned once again up to Raleigh to express your thoughts on this again.
The United States government put an awful lot of money into making sure that Chase was a pretty persuasive guy when he absolutely needed to be. So
you're talking about during his service to our country.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody who's listening has ever met a Raider, but they can be convincing when they absolutely need to be. And so, I feel confident about the Senate Judiciary Committee. We've got some work to be done in healthcare and a few other places. And I might add, Joe, Chase and I are representing the voice of other people on this. And we can't tell everybody's story, but we do need to tell them. So if there's anybody that's listening that knows somebody specifically with cancer or epilepsy or has had seizures that has illegally purchased medical cannabis and used it and it helped them, we want to talk to them. So there's a website set up for this. It's called NC Families for Medical Cannabis. You can go tell your story, share it anonymously, and these are the stories from North Carolinians that we need to collect and put in front of some of these different House and Senate members to say they're already doing it, they're already using it, and they've gotten great results from it. Let's not let the law be an impediment to the help. And that's why Senator Rabin named it the Compassionate Care Act, because I do believe that it is compassionate. So let's not let an old tired law or some tired arguments be a roadblock to getting North Carolinians what they need.
As I let you boys go, Chase, give us some details on the Veterans Business Collective, how people can get involved or learn more information about what you're trying to do here across much of the state and in many other states like us.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. Our website is veteranbusinesscollective.org. There's a contact form on there. You can get in touch with us if you're interested in joining or maybe launching a chapter in another part of the state or another part of the country. Our next local meeting here in Wilmington is going to be next week, July 8th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Waterman's Brewing. Guests are always encouraged and welcome to attend. Come check us out, see what we have going on.
That's the Veterans Business Collective. They'll be meeting next week, as Chase mentioned, at Waterman's Brewery over on Eastwood Road. as you head towards Riceville Beach. And Rob, in your endeavors through Signal Fire Media, why would somebody want to tune in to what you have to say? Or if someone is interested in learning more in working with you and your organization, how can they contact you?
Matt and Evan, the other two that are on the show, we talk quite regularly. We got a text message from somebody that said, hey, whenever you run into your buddy from Signal Fire Radio, let him know that his podcast is extremely helpful. And in my perspective for transitioning and listening to them, definitely feels like I'm back shooting the stuff, I'll edit myself, with some old buddies from the military. So the whole purpose of us having a voice and sharing stories and being leaders is because of text messages like that we receive, that it's helping people. Chase said there is no one silver bullet. We don't think that medical cannabis is going to fix everything within our veteran community or our community at large. It's a part of a broader lifestyle and having a conversation and being open, honest, transparent, and vulnerable. And that's what we aim to do, man. So, Joe, you create that platform every day. So I just want to say you're doing yeoman's work here, man, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us throughout the past year.
Signal Fire Radio, their program airs Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Big Talker FM. Fellas, thanks for the time and your work towards helping and improving the lives of your brothers and those who serve our country. It's something that is often ignored. We ignore a lot of the issues we have in our society, and somehow, some way, our focus gets turned on things that ultimately don't matter much or impact our lives day to day. So I'm glad that we're able to center the focus on impacting people's lives at the tune of who knows, as Chase, you said, if we can impact one. But, in my way of looking at it, there are millions of people out there that, we could help steer in the right direction, whether it be, difficulties with mental health and instability or many of the other issues that we face, obesity being one of them that comes to mind, just general health and wellness that people don't, take into consideration when they go about their lives, day to day. These are all things that allow us to, build upon. Again, given this great platform that we have here at the Big Talker. Fellas, thanks as always.
Thank you, buddy. Catanacci from Air.
As we move down into the bottom of the hour here on the Big Talker FM, good buddy Rob Renz and Chase Roth with us again. The North Carolina Veterans Business Collective will be meeting next week at Waterman's Brewery. If you want more information, you can contact us. Chase gave you some of the details. Signal Fire Radio. It airs Mondays 6 to 7 p.m. here on the Big Talker FM.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a Signal Fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles and Culex variety mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Take back your yard.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. Authorities in Florida have requested an additional search and rescue team to help look for survivors in the rubble of a collapsed condo tower. Kevin Guthrie of the Florida Division of Emergency Management said his agency asked for an additional team from the federal government. He said the new team would allow crews that have been working at the site for days to rotate out and be on hand if severe weather hits the area in coming days. Back here in the Cape Fear, we're just a few days away from the grand opening of downtown Wilmington's brand new Riverfront Park, but will it be ready in time? Construction is still underway at the park and amphitheater located near PPD and Marino Grill. There's a ribbon cutting scheduled for Friday, and Sunday, the 4th of July, will be a day of free concerts. The scene may look a little chaotic, but a spokesman for the city says he's confident it will be finished in time for the festivities. More than 100 jobs will be coming to Brunswick and Columbus counties. Precision Swiss Products Incorporated is a manufacturer of high-component parts. The company will invest more than $9 million to locate its headquarters and manufacturing facility to the International Logistics Park, shared by Brunswick and Columbus counties. The company plans to hire 125 people, including machinists, shipping and receiving workers, QC personnel, executive and administrative staff. Annual pay will be just over $54,000. And Snows Cut Park near Carolina Beach permanently closes today. New Hanover County making the decision because it says it can't guarantee the park is safe for visitors. Significant shoreline erosion has caused steep embankments, compromising the septic system and causing sinkholes. To make repairs, 40 trees would need to be removed, which the county says would cause more erosion. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, it's going to be another hot and humid afternoon across the Cape Fear. Temperatures inland of the coast are going to be jumping back into the upper 80s, but feeling much like the low to middle 90s when you factor in that humidity out there. Same thing for the coastal areas today, and we do keep a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind. But tonight, we're remaining mostly clear with temperatures falling down into the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Second half of the program underway for this Wednesday, June 30th. 2021, approaching an Independence Day weekend. Hey, we celebrate our nation's independence, freedom, liberty, opportunities for all. The pursuit of happiness, unlike many of the news networks that you see out there these days. In fact, just go to ABC News, and they are touting 100 years of communist rule in the country of China this week. They're not your friends, folks. The sooner that resonates in the gray matter between your ears, the better off you will be. We thank Chase Roth and Rob Renz for joining us just a minute ago to highlight some efforts that they made last week to persuade lawmakers up in Raleigh to move forward with the legalization of medical cannabis in the state of North Carolina. 36 other states have gone down this road. One of the sponsors of that bill is with us right now from the area, State Senator Michael Lee. We'll touch on the proposal in just a moment. Senator Lee, it's always a pleasure, and thanks for holding the line this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, we're hanging tight. Getting ready to enjoy a 4th of July weekend. I know a lot of folks out here, at least the locals, it's like, all right, time to stay in the house and let all the visitors come, spend a bunch of money, and then, we'll get back out on the beaches and, enjoy, our town after all the vacationers, leave in a couple of months. Once the weather, of course, cools down as well. It's what happens to the locals at the beach, during this time of year. But nonetheless, Senator Lee, there's a lot going on up in Raleigh this legislative session. I just want to get your thoughts real quick because I saw a headline. It's amazing how the media, the arm of Governor Cooper and, the Democrat Party in large part, how they can twist and turn the tables as quickly as they did, considering Now the Council of State, I guess, is to blame, according to the media, for moving forward with lifting the provision that prevents evictions from our state. No mention of Governor Cooper's one size fits all, it's my way or the highway way of thinking throughout this entire pandemic and the lockdown. Now, he has courted the Council of State. The Republicans voted to end this eviction moratorium. And, as we typically see in the news media, it's all the Republicans' fault as far as wanting to move forward and get us back to some type of normalcy in our country.
Yeah, it may be hard to believe, but we are still under a state of emergency in North Carolina because the governor still has yet to lift it. Because when you're in a state of emergency, he pretty much has the sole authority to do a lot of different things. And so he's been hesitant is probably too easy of a word to use when I say that he's hesitant to lift the state of emergency. It's clear we need to move on in many different areas, and the state of emergency needs to be lifted, and we need to get on with working and doing other things.
Well, in addition to, of course, moving forward with revoking the extension of this evictions protection that's been in place for the better part of the last year, colleagues alongside yourself in the state Senate have also moved forward with wanting to pull North Carolina from the federal unemployment benefit package and supplement that the feds have been providing for the better part of the last year. What are your thoughts behind that and this idea? Because the numbers show it. The states that have foregone this extra supplement are seeing, jobless claims drop over the past couple of weeks, and the search for employment increase in the 26 states that have ended the participation of this $300 extra weekly unemployment bonus provided by the federal government.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've tried to eliminate it. If we try and do it by statute, the governor will veto it, or by a bill. So it's difficult. In these other states, you see the governors have been supportive of the concept, and that's how it's been able to move forward. We haven't been able to move forward solely because the governor does not want to move forward in that direction. So what we've done is we've really focused on our budget. We've focused on providing small businesses with additional relief in the way of grant funding to those who have received any kind of relief during the pandemic from the federal government, as well as providing a big bucket of funds for those who were not able to mobilize quickly under PPP and the other programs. They can also apply for certain grant funding to help small businesses. We just passed out of the Senate a budget that sets, $12 billion in cash for infrastructure, capital, and projects over 10 years without taking on debt, and in fact are paying down debt. It includes a sweeping tax package that reduces median household income tax by 37% next year. We also are raising the minimum wage for non-certified school employees and community college employees to $13 an hour. We're doing a lot of different things to try and help the community, businesses, and the economy in general. And unfortunately, the governor really is just kind of in the way when it comes to a lot of those things.
In regards to the budget proposal that has moved forward in the Senate and now being considered in the House, the governor says he's willing to have quote-unquote trilateral negotiations, I'm assuming between the Republican leaders in the State House and Senate as it pertains to the budget. But we're hearing the tired old argument that the budget comes up short as it's portrayed that Republicans don't like educators or public education, and as a result, education funding in this budget comes up short by those who are the supposed advocates for public education in North Carolina. I know you put a lot of focus on education and issues related to school-age children in what you do day to day, representing our area in Raleigh. What's kind of your response to those who are, again, rinsing, washing, and playing this tired old argument that Republicans, don't want to fund public school teachers and public education?
Yeah, it's just a false narrative. We've increased the state budget by over $500 million just this year for education funding. That doesn't include all the capital infrastructure. It doesn't include the $4.5 billion that have been flowing into our state and school districts. Think about it for just a second, that there's been federal funding flowing directly to school districts through the legislature to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. New Hanover County's received over $50 million. Robinson County's received over $100 million. I mean, you could just go down the list as to the funding that has occurred through the federal government. So funding to schools is not something that we're having an issue with right now. Again, on the state level, increasing spending as we do, but we're also putting some really good policies in place to match some of that spending. A lot of times what you hear is we just need to spend more, but then they never get to the policy side, and which is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle to connect with funding.
State Senator Michael Lee with us here this morning, and again, a budget that has been laid out by Senate Republicans, and in fact, garnered even bipartisan support as 4 Democrats, jumped on board with this layout. We'll see when push comes to shove, and we head to a potential override or a veto, and then an override vote. Whether those 4 Democrat state senators, hold and draw that line in the sand, we shall see. But with that said, doesn't the governor, if we had, equal as far as coverage goes in the media, wouldn't the governor have some egg on his face in your estimation, Senator Lee, given the fact that he vetoed previous budgets in regards to teacher pay that included, pretty big, percentage increases as far as, increasing teacher pay. And he said Medicaid for all or Medicaid expansion or nothing, and now the teachers are kind of left in limbo. No coverage on that, though. It's always the Republicans, of course, in the news media that want to defund the public school system.
Yeah, I mean, there were salary increases, 19 and 20 that never went into effect because the governor said it wasn't enough, so he thought they should get nothing, which is just, it's ridiculous to say the least. But the narrative that you hear in the media is that he was holding the line. And what he did was he held the line and hurt a lot of people. We're spending over $10 billion in K-12 education out of a $26, $27 billion budget. And that doesn't even, that's just K-12. It doesn't include the UNC system. It doesn't include pre-K. So we're really investing in education in North Carolina. We've been investing in our educators, our principals. We're really working hard, and you don't really see that covered in the media, even though we've got some great things that are really happening on the budget side.
Senator Lee, we just spoke with 2 veterans that you heard from last week in regards to a proposal that you've gotten behind as it relates to legalization of medical cannabis in our state. 36 other states have already moved down this pathway. Now, in your eyes, what jumped out to you to sponsor this proposal, and what did you hear from some of these veterans that spoke so passionately about this subject last week?
Senator Rabin is the lead sponsor, and I've been working with him on this particular issue. It's really the right time to do it. It's the right thing to do. The debilitating conditions or what will warrant the referral for medical marijuana to an individual is really a very narrow and limited list. It's not like what you've seen in other states. So we've set up a regulatory process that's really tight and not only works with the distribution side, but also works on the pharmaceutical grade quality side. So, I think we've got the policy right. What we heard from veterans, some really moving testimony at our last hearing related to PTSD and some of the things that they went through in the various wars that we've had over the last 15 to 20 years. And if we weren't sure about what we were doing before, we certainly were after hearing that testimony. It's important to note that marijuana is a drug, and it is not something that kids need to be using. It's not something that people need to be using recreationally, but it has had a profound and dramatic impact on a number of folks who've had debilitating conditions such as PTSD, cancer, ALS, MS. There's a list of about 10 or 12 debilitating conditions where this can have a dramatic and profound effect. And that's what Senator Rabin and I are really, moving forward with.
And with that, continuing to try and stray away from the old way of doing things for the better part of the last couple of decades that has led to massive addiction rates on all sorts of other problems in regards to opioid use. And, straying away from this idea that we need pills to wake up in the morning, pills to put us down at night, and use this prescription way of life. And the boys who were in just a little while ago, to the opponents of this proposal saying, listen, we feed our kids all sorts of different prescription drugs, this, that, and the other, and we're rarely bringing that to light when we have this broader conversation about addiction and prescription pill use, and how we're leveling out all of our society, with a prescription pad, rather than looking at alternatives and even ideas that are being tried elsewhere across the state. I'm assuming that you have a similar type of way of looking at this as well, as far as talking with opponents of this proposal.
Yeah, I mean, in particular with PTSD, for veterans, the traditional medical route is psychotropics and other types of really significant drugs. And when you talk to veterans and you talk to healthcare professionals, medical cannabis as part of an overall regime and strategy of counseling and other things, it can be incredibly effective, not just to minimize the symptoms of PTSD, but in some instances really help veterans recover from it. It's almost, they call it retraining memories. If you have a traumatic impact every time you go to a bridge, for example, with what one veteran explained to me, over time he was able to kind of retrain with the help of a therapist the impact of crossing over a bridge. Because of some things that happened when he was in Afghanistan. So, I mean, there are some really effective strategies utilizing medical cannabis, and it's just because it's not part of a regime right now, you've got self-medicating folks who are not using it in connection with an overall regime to help with those particular issues. And it's the right thing to do. It's the right time to do it, and Senator Raven and I are going to continue to work hard to hopefully make it happen.
And of course, this proposal regarding the legalization of medical cannabis is expected to have a vote today, and the Senate Judiciary Committee has a few other hurdles it needs to meet and overcome in order to get on the floor of the Senate for a vote, hopefully in the not-so-distant future. Senator Lee, as we part ways with you here this morning, anything else as far as this legislative update bringing Raleigh to Wilmington this morning that you'd like to alert our listeners to?
We've been doing a lot up in Raleigh, and whether it's the Election Integrity Act to make Election Day the deadline, prohibit funding of elections by private organizations, or whether it's really dealing with the budget issues and the policies associated with it, not just on the education side, but on the environmental side. We passed a Water Safety Act of 2021, which provides for further testing and also some novel research that's going on with water quality treatment, and also funding DEQ with a quick response team to respond to emerging compounds, mapping them across the state, and really providing beefed up enforcement. So there's a lot going on. So I'd love to come back and talk about some of those things maybe in a week or two.
And we will do that. I'll work with Debbie and yourself to get you rescheduled, and we look forward to these updates as again we bring news out of our state government from our capital city back here to the coast. State Senator Michael Lee with us here this morning. Senator Lee, it's always a pleasure. Thanks again for the update.
Thank you, and look forward to catching up in the not-too-distant future.
All right, we look forward to those conversations as well. As you mentioned, the Voter Integrity Act that has been discussed up in Raleigh over the last several months following the debacle of the 2020 election. Remember, here in North Carolina, as we highlighted on a near daily basis, particularly with Tom Goolsbee, it was like every Tuesday for months last summer in the build-up to Election Day in November that we were talking about efforts within the legislature, of course, to deal with COVID and how folks would go to the polls, some of the loosening of election law approved by our lawmakers, and then behind the scenes, what the appointed State Board of Elections was doing alongside a few prominent attorneys aligned with the Democrat Party to move forward with further loosening of election law, how that was denied in the courts here in North Carolina, not the way in which we saw other states move forward in our eyes, unconstitutionally with the loosening of laws without legislative approval, whether it be through executive order by a governor or these appointed bodies, such as the State Board of Elections here in our state. Well, the Voter Integrity Act here in North Carolina, of course, voter ID continued to be a hot-button issue, still not implemented here in North Carolina, even after a majority of North Carolinians, what was it, in 2018, voted to implement and amend the North Carolina Constitution to require voter ID. That's still not in place. And in regards to the dates in which absentee ballots arrive, well, as you heard Senator Lee, they would like those absentee ballots to arrive on Election Day, and that's the deadline. Doesn't need to be 5, 6, 7, 8 days. We've already got 3 weeks of early voting on Saturdays, voting on Sundays, voting by absentee ballot. Election Day is the deadline. Why is that so hard of a concept to wrap your head around? Well, of course, the tired old argument, as you hear time and time again, pointing one group of people against another based on what you look like or where you come from. That's basically the go-to argument by those on the left for every issue in our country at this point. There's nothing being debated as far as, the substance of many of these proposals or many of the issues of our time in this day that we're living in. Everything is viewed, of course, through what you look like and where you come from. The idea of critical race theory that many are pushing in our schools, for instance. We have fought these battles. Hundreds of thousands, millions of our own people have died over this cause, whether it be back in the 1800s or to the 1960s. Millions of people have fought and died over this idea of getting over looking at our life and our way here in our country through the lens of what you look like and where you come from and judging people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Yet every argument you hear from those, particularly on the left side of the political spectrum, always injects this idea of, race or class warfare to build upon, divisiveness. And a reminder, the elitists, the white suburbanites, the progressives, the top 1%ers in entertainment, athletics, these people will not be impacted if we continue to move down this way of thought, this way of thinking. It's pretty simple. We thank State Senator Michael Lee for joining us here this morning on the Big Talker FM. As we head up to 9 o'clock, Richard Battle going to join us of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times, author of many publications, including the one I just mentioned, richardbattle.com. Heading into 4th of July, Richard wants to honor the founding patriots ahead of Independence Day. He says our founding patriots blessed us far greater than our appreciation of them. Serious men who knew what they risked and why, but felt the gamble was worthwhile to create a unique place on earth where men govern themselves and individual liberty was the order of the day, risking everything, their lives, their fortunes, their children, their sacred honor. Richard will touch on the founding patriots of this great nation when we get back from the top of the hour news break, right here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Our call-in number, if you'd like to be a part of the show, 910-299-7535.
This is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Keeping Oak Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. It's back to the border today for former President Trump visiting the Rio Grande Valley of Texas for an up-close look at the border and unfinished sections of his signature border wall. Governor Greg Abbott invited Mr. Trump to visit. The governor says the current administration's policy is generating a tidal wave of illegal aliens, deadly drugs, and crime.
It is clear that Biden's open border policies are unleashing deadly consequences right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And across the rest of Texas and the country, Abbott is pressing ahead with state efforts to complete sections of the wall that were left undone when Mr. Trump left the White House. And the former president is taking a shot at GOP leaders he says have been played by Democrat efforts to negotiate an infrastructure compromise.
President Biden's new demand the bipartisan bill be presented along with a Democrat reconciliation package for trillions more has Republican senators like Tim Scott of South Carolina feeling betrayed.
There's no doubt about it.
Scott tells the Salem Radio Network.
Well, my understanding is that you can't trust what the president says on infrastructure.
Something President Trump says should have been obvious the whole time, blasting GOP leader McConnell, writing, quote, should have never lost the Senate in the first place. Thanks, Mitch. McConnell says he remains undecided on supporting the infrastructure compromise. Bob Agnew reporting.
The Western drought will be on the agenda today when President Biden sits down with governors and members of his cabinet.
It's shaping up to be a severe wildfire season in the western U.S., where a severe drought has strained firefighting resources. Plus, the Northwest has been uncharacteristically scorching hot this week during a historic heat wave. The president plans to use today's meeting to work with states impacted by drought and wildfires.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. Watching Wall Street, Dow futures down 41 points, NASDAQ futures off 7 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Dinesh D'Souza, want to know an easy way to save a lot of money each month? Refinance your mortgage and do it now before rates get any higher. I mean it. There are still programs with rates in the 2s, making now the time to call American Financing, America's home for home loans. Take advantage of a free mortgage review and learn how they can save you up to $1,000 a month. That's right, a month. It's a no-pressure, no-obligation experience, just a simple conversation around custom loan programs that may fit your budget better. There are no upfront or hidden fees to pay, and you can pre-qualify for free by calling 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, or visit AmericanFinancing.net. American Financing. NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
The UN says it urgently needs access to tens of thousands of vulnerable people in Ethiopia's embattled Tigray region.
The military situation is changing. Humanitarian conditions are not. The UN says the 8-month war has pushed 250,000 to the brink of famine. The federal government says it has declared a unilateral ceasefire for humanitarian reasons, but its spokesman on Wednesday did not sound conciliatory. He said Tigray's regional capital, Mekele, which fell to the rebels on Monday, could be retaken in 3 weeks if necessary. The military said the rebels might try to move into neighbouring Eritrea and the key Ethiopian town of Humera, but that the army was in a position to contain them.
The BBC's Mary Harper. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un berating top officials for failures in coronavirus prevention that caused what he calls a great crisis in the country. News and analysis, townhall.com. The Supreme Court allowing a nationwide moratorium on evictions to stay in place.
On a 5-4 vote, the court rejected a plea by landlords to end the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention moratorium on evictions of tenants who have not paid rent during the coronavirus pandemic. U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich had struck down the moratorium, saying the CDC had exceeded its authority, but she put her ruling on hold. Last week, the Biden administration extended the moratorium until the end of July and said it did not expect another extension. Mike Gracia, Washington.
Authorities in Florida have requested an additional federal search and rescue team to help look for survivors in the rubble of that collapsed condo tower in Surfside, Florida. As of now, the death toll stands at 12, with 149 people still unaccounted for. Once again on Wall Street this hour, Dow futures are down 35 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. Another beautiful morning here across the coast of North Carolina. As you can see, if you're tuned in to our Facebook page or subscribed to our YouTube channel and viewing the video portion of the show today, Chamber of Commerce type morning along Pleasure Island. Blue skies, sandy beaches, the ocean looking absolutely gorgeous out there this morning as we roll into an Independence Day weekend. And why would we want to talk about our nation's independence moving into the 4th of July? I mean, when we've got some of the mainstream news outlets in the country praising the Chinese Communist Party this week, as we've touched on just a bit here this morning and during our conversation with attorney Tom Goolsby during yesterday's broadcast, as I came across this post by ABC News. Party time. Chinese Communist Party puts on a night of political theater to commemorate 100 years of existence. I guess they forgot the cliff note there that millions upon millions upon millions of people have died under the idea of communism, but I guess that's neither here nor there when we are looking to celebrate the declaration of our independence from, the Crown in 1776. Not 1619, as some would like you to believe, but the Declaration of Independence in 1776. As we continue to try and contort and twist and turn and put forth falsehoods in regards to the founding of our nation, often, as our next guest says, we overlook the brilliant men who crafted that Declaration of Independence 200-plus years ago. Richard Battle is with us at richardbattle.com. Author of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times. Richard, from the great state of Texas, as always, good morning, sir. I hope you're having a great morning.
Good morning, Joe. Every morning that we're independent and free is a great morning, and we should celebrate that every day, not just one day of the years. But this is Independence Day week, and it's time to reflect and appreciate.
Well, of course, the founding fathers are often put into question these days due to their lifestyles. 200-plus years ago, rarely are we talking about the wise viewpoints and the vision that these men have had, given the time period that they were living in. It never, kind of ceases to amaze me, how folks out there, the detractors, try and twist and turn, particularly our founding patriots in putting forth this vision that we should all continue to strive for, and the millions and millions of people who have sacrificed it all in the name of freedom and liberty, not only for this nation, but for so many nations all around the world. We often forget that, and we rarely discuss it without some sort of divisiveness being thrown in there by those on the left. So in your mind, as we often overlook these men who crafted the Declaration of Independence, give us some thoughts on our nation's founding and the men who formed this perfect document that we should all look up to and strive for on a day-to-day basis.
Well, first, I think it's interesting that most of the critics have never done anything to contribute to this country. And these men, and it happened to be 56 white men, but it didn't have to be, because the principles that they put down for us are not based on color. Those principles are still valid. And if you look, only the United States and the countries that are part of the UK have not had violent changes of government in the last 100 years, much less 250 years. And they came together, and as you mentioned earlier, they were serious because they recognized that when they signed that document, they put their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor on the line. They realized they would be outlaws of the state. So when John Hancock signed his name first and prominently, it was an in-your-face moment to the British Crown. And if we look in the lives of signers of the Declaration of Independence, a 1848 book written by B.J. Lossing, he mentioned that 9 of them died fighting or from hardship. 12 had their homes pillaged and destroyed. 5 were captured and tortured before dying. 2 lost sons. 2 others had sons captured, and others lost their wives and fortunes. So they paid dearly for that document that they put down and the war that we fought for 7 years before the independence was finally recognized.
And with that said, as we highlighted, and as many people know, they try and now tear away from some of those risks and some of the forward thinking that these men had, because we often want to place judgment on people for the times in which they lived in. We all can highlight the fact that slavery was an ugly part of our history. Yes, some of our founding fathers owned slaves. Others, of course, fought to end slavery. And when we look at the grand scale of world history, 50 years is not that long of a time when we look at the nations of Europe and of the Far East. And in just over 240 plus years, this nation has taken us from a place where we had, enslaved people to a place where there is more opportunity out there for folks, no matter what you look like, where you come from, than there is in any other place on the planet Earth. And, rarely is it put into context like that.
Well, not only today, but when this country was founded, I say we, when the founders founded the country, it was a unique place as well. And that, I think, people forget, even putting them in their context of their time. And they recognize man's imperfection. Man was imperfect then, man is imperfect now. And they distrusted government, but they gave us individual liberty and political and economic freedom. And we heard the protesters in the 60s would all talk about power to the people. Well, they gave power to the people. And since then, governments have worked very hard to take power away from the people and put it into government hands. And the people on the left who distrust our founders are the ones that want to go to a government where they say it's in the people's name, but it's never in the people's name.
And, as you and I echo a lot of the same things that our founding fathers did so many years ago, that it is in our belief when we give man more power, more influence, that ultimately, a more centralized way of governance is something that we should stray away from, because at the end of the day, it is in our belief those top tier elites and others who are in those sort of circles and run with those sorts of people, they're never impacted by the bureaucratic state, the centralized one size fits all. It's the working men and women, it's the lower middle classes of society that often struggle the most under these types of regimes. I mean, there's only hundreds of years of history to prove our point.
Well, that's absolutely true, and some men and women in every generation and every locale in the world have wanted to gather power to rule over people. And our founders gave us the ability to self-rule, believing that the people could rule and govern themselves better than a small group of individuals. I mean, they went away from the crown. George Washington had the opportunity to become king and turned it down because he recognized that no man could rule over people, or no woman could rule over people, because of our inherent imperfections.
Richard Battle with us once again this morning, author of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times. RichardBattle.com is his website if you want to learn more about what he does and why he does it, what he stands for. Of course, giving the fact that we're moving into Independence Day weekend, Richard expressed his thoughts that he wanted to share and honor the founding patriots ahead of Independence Day at a time where there are so many out there rushing to destroy our history and rewrite it in many instances, particularly within our places of education for our school-age children. With that said, Richard, when we look back to the United States Constitution, 1787, hard to think back and consider what life was like at that time. But at that time, it was a brand new document, and a document which is now serving as the longest active governing document globally. I think that says all it needs to say as far as why we believe this country still remains to be that diamond in the rough in this wild world that we live in.
Well, absolutely. I believe the government that governs best governs least. And when the Constitution was written, we need to remember that it was people that came together as representatives of their states, and the states formed the federal government. And in the last, especially 100 years, the federal government has taken power from the states and people at unprecedented rates, and it's totally out of balance at this time. And my hope is that we will attest and recertify our power as people in states and rebalance it, because we should not be slaves to the federal government. The federal government should serve us in our states.
Richard, when we look at 200 plus years ago and fast forward now to present day, we've all experienced a ton over the past year. And in my mind, if you haven't woken up at this point, I don't know if you ever will, as far as the efforts by those in government to create a more centralized environment with a little bit more money, a little bit more influence. I think the pandemic and the lockdown magnified this by a million times over. How can we continue to push this message and to try to win over folks that maybe on the fence are hesitant when we talk about the greatness of this nation and how unique it was, 200 years ago with these sorts of ideas that we're trying to, build upon even today?
Well, until the last 20 years or so, I think we counted on schools and everyone to be pro-American. And that is not the case now. So it's up to each of us to stand up. We have to communicate to people. We have to make sure our children are educated about the true founding and the liberties and the benefits we have. And all we have to do is look at the French Revolution that occurred after ours to see the difference of an emotional, power-driven revolution versus one that was limited government. And so it's up to us to act and educate our children and make sure they know what's going on, because we can't count on schools or other people to do it for us anymore.
Richard Battle with us here this morning, and as we wrap up, Richard, and moving into this, nation's Independence Day, it's it really kind of just baffles me, how this distorted way of looking at the founding of our nation has, frankly, become mainstream. There used to be folks maybe within places of academia or in the corners, shouting, that we need to transition into, a more socialist type of way, or, ABC News this week, praising communism in China. They rarely tell, the other side of the story, the other side of the coin, as far as, what these other ideas and forms of government have led to for the masses over, the history of the world.
Well, that's true. And I love Thomas Sowell's quote about much of the history of the Western world the past 30 years is giving up what's worked for what sounds good. And the people on the left are always advocating theoretical solutions, acting like those solutions have never been tried around the world before. And yet our form of government has been the most successful in the history of the world. And we need to make sure we not only retain it, but we improve it.
Timeless positive messages of proven principles helping people win every day. The motto of our friend Richard Battle, award-winning author, speaker, and advisor. You want to find out more about what he does and why he does it, go to his website at richardbattle.com. Richard, thanks so much for your perspective here this morning, an important one, and really one in the minority as far as the media outlets and folks who are out and about touting this and that. We would like to hear more of these sorts of messages across our news networks and within media and the platforms people consume. So please spread the word. We need more of this sort of thought in our culture today.
Joe, thank you again for having me. God bless America and enjoy our independence.
richardbattle.com if you'd like to know more about the many books that Richard has authored, including one that we make mention of each week during his appearance, Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife.
I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, where the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, oh, from sea to shining sea. From Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, oh, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless this country. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles inculeata mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Take back your yard.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here on Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
I'm Jason Gaver, and I'm running for Leland Town Council because Leland is where my wife and I are raising our daughter. I have a clear vision for Leland's future, keeping taxes as low as possible, spending every dollar wisely, focusing on core priorities like infrastructure and public safety, planning for future growth. I'm ready to serve, and I ask for your support. If you have questions or would like to learn more, please visit jasongaver.com. Paid for by the Committee to Elect Jason Gaver.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO's coasttocoasttree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Love you like I do. Don't know why I love you. Don't know why I care.
Moving through the final half hour of our show here this morning. If you'd like to call in, of course, it's 910-299-7535. Some local news, and unlike other municipalities and cities across our state, as lawmakers and the governor have signed off on delaying municipal elections in places like Raleigh and elsewhere, due in large part to the delay in the reporting of census data, which makes it difficult to redraw the district lines within cities and towns throughout our state. Well, here in the city of Wilmington, for instance, we do not have districts, so our municipal election will go on this November. But folks here in the area already jockeying for position moving into 2022 in the midterms. And yesterday we got word that, the mayor of Carolina Beach, Leanne Pierce, would not be seeking re-election. She made a post on Facebook and said that she instead is eyeing a seat on the new Hanover County Board of Commissioners come next year. So Ms. Pierce, Mayor Pierce of Carolina Beach, one of the early candidates to toss her name in the hat for the race for county commission in 2022. We also know Harry Knight, who joins us from the Southeast Republican Men's Association. He'll be running on the Republican side as well. I believe in 2022, the county commission will have 2 seats up. That'll be of Rob Zappel and, Julia Bozeman. Of course, they've made news as of late, given the fact that, beginning of the new year, we will see a property tax increase here in our area. We look at some of the things that Commissioner Bozeman has pushed during her time on the commission, along with, of course, Commissioner Zappel, hesitant in moving forward with the sale of our hospital, arguing that there are other sources of revenue we can look to other than placing the burden on property owners as far as working to increase education funding in our local district. Those are just two of the things that pop up in my mind right now that we can call attention to. Of course, for Commissioner Bozeman, we know that, maybe some sketchy conversations were had utilizing county resources to push her pursuit of hiring or push her pursuit of finding folks that she could work alongside in that tragic fire in Carolina Beach from a month or so ago, a couple of months back, that apartment fire. Well, utilizing county resources to maybe stir up, potential lawsuits in the future. A lot of questionable things that the former state senator and now commission chair has moved with, creating all sorts of political opponents, even within her own political party here locally. Working with Woody White and Pat Cusack on the sale of the hospital. And then, of course, following Hurricane Florence, for instance, she had some very good ideas as how we can work towards, mitigating some of the tough times people faced after the storm from a few years back. But none of that sort of came to fruition. That kind of got left by the wayside as she has pursued other topics that have garnered interest in our county over the last year or so, including this 14% property tax increase across the county. Heck, if you're in the city, municipal election coming up this November, you're getting a double whammy as far as your taxes are concerned when it comes to your property. So yesterday, a little election news as the mayor of Carolina Beach announces that she will not seek re-election. She spent a ton of time on the Carolina Beach Town Council as mayor and now will be eyeing a seat on the new Hanover County Board of Commissioners when those seats go up for grabs in the midterms as part of the 2022 election cycle in November. We've hit the bottom of the hour. Phone lines are open here until 10 o'clock at 910-299-7535. Just one of the stories we're following locally here today. Getting word that, in Brunswick County, 125 new manufacturing jobs come into the area as Precision Swiss Products Incorporated, based out of California, will be investing some $9.3 million to locate its headquarters and manufacturing facility at the International Logistics Park across the river, shared by both Brunswick and Columbus counties. Talking about good-paying 125 new jobs that they hope to bring to the area, with an average annual salary for all new positions over $54,000. That's good news for our region. Of course, in a time where, there are plenty of businesses out there looking for employees across the board. Nearly every industry in America and right here in our area presently with job openings. Yet, there's a way of thinking here by some of the political persuasion that, the incentives to stay home, in their eyes, not necessarily the reason why people are hesitant to find a job. Yet the numbers say something different. Point your attention to an article at fee.org, FEE.org, penned by our friend Brad Palumbo, contributor to our program. The 26 states that have announced their plan to end participation in the $300 weekly unemployment bonus provided by the federal government. The 26 states that have ended their participation in this program have seen a near 13% decline on average in initial jobless claims over the past week. The 12 states that have officially opted out of the weekly bonus thus far have seen consistent declines each week since ending participation in the bonus. The states that have continued to move forward, they continue to see unemployment claims increase week after week. So the numbers say something different than what the politicians are telling you. We've hit the bottom of the hour. Again, our number, 910-299-7535, if you'd like to be a part of the program.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. Authorities in Florida have requested an additional search and rescue team to help look for survivors in the rubble of a collapsed condo tower. Kevin Guthrie of the Florida Division of Emergency Management said his agency asked for an additional team from the federal government. He said the new team would allow crews that have been working at the site for days to rotate out and be on hand if severe weather hits the area in coming days. Back here in the Cape Fear, we're just a few days away from the grand opening of downtown Wilmington's brand new Riverfront Park, but will it be ready in time? Construction is still underway at the park and amphitheater located near PPD and Marina Grill. There's a ribbon cutting scheduled for Friday, and Sunday, the 4th of July, will be a day of free concerts. The scene may look a little chaotic, but a spokesman for the city says he's confident it will be finished in time for the festivities. More than 100 jobs will be coming to Brunswick and Columbus counties. Precision Swiss Products Incorporated is a manufacturer of high-component parts. The company will invest more than $9 million to locate its headquarters and manufacturing facility to the International Logistics Park, shared by Brunswick and Columbus counties. The company plans to hire 125 people, including machinists, shipping and receiving workers, QC personnel, executive and administrative staff. Annual pay will be just over $54,000. And Snows Cup Park near Carolina Beach permanently closes today. New Hanover County making the decision because it says it can't guarantee the park is safe for visitors. Significant shoreline erosion has caused steep embankments, compromising the septic system and causing sinkholes. To make repairs, 40 trees would need to be removed, which the county says would cause more erosion. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, it's going to be another hot and humid afternoon across the Cape Fear. Temperatures inland of the coast are going to be jumping back into the upper 80s, but feeling much like the low to middle 90s when you factor in that humidity out there. Same thing for the coastal areas today, and we do keep a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind. But tonight, we're remaining mostly clear with temperatures falling down into the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Well, as they kicked off the show earlier this morning with the latest 5 clowns on the bozo meter, American News Network's praising communism and 100 years of communist rule in China. I'm not kidding. Go to ABC News and you find the video, a night of political theater. I guess they forgot to include Mao and the millions of people that died under his guidance many, many years ago, or the millions and millions of other people who have died under communist rule and other places around the world. That's never mentioned, of course, when they toss out this idea of communism, praising communism. The rise and fall of the Iron Curtain, nothing to see here. The fact that we have corporations that have cozied up to the Chinese communists here in our nation. We've got, even our first family with investments in the communist regime in the Far East. We've got Chinese spies compromising our lawmakers. 910-299-7535 is our number if you'd like to call in. And caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm hanging tight. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I thought I'd call in and remind our viewers that, or our listeners, that if you have some time free in the morning, swinging by the Brunswick County Courthouse about 8:30 and getting inside before 8:45, there's going to be what we call a hoot going on, a patriotic hoot. Are you familiar with that?
I am not. Please give us some of the details on that.
Patriotic hoot, basically, those that are old enough remember when we used to have something called flash mobs, and that was before they became destructive. Basically, they were just suddenly a group of people would come together, sing a song or two or three, or even dance, and they would just disappear again. Well, there's one scheduled tomorrow at the Rotunda in the Brunswick County Courthouse to start properly at 8:45, and people will just show up, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 people will start leading several patriotic songs. When that's done, people will just go home again. But it's a unique experience. It's something, if you have time to get there, it starts promptly at 8:45, and they suggest you get there by about 8:30 to get parking and get through security to get inside, because it is a courthouse. But anyway, it's something that you really, really, if you have the time to get involved in, and especially for this weekend of the 4th of July, it's something that I would recommend you get involved in. And beyond that, while you're there, outside are the Charters of Freedom. So you can take a minute or take your family to see them. They're out 24/7. And those are replicas and permanent replicas of our founding documents: Constitution, Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. It's something that our kids should see during this weekend. And remember, it's not just hot dogs and hamburgers. There's a reason for this holiday.
Is this Bill Moore of All Things Brunswick?
That might be the person you're talking to, sir.
Hey, Bill, so this is tomorrow at 8:30 at the Brunswick County Courthouse.
It starts at 8:45. They recommend you get there by 8:30 because you've got to park. You got to get through security to get inside to the courthouse. But it is a unique experience, and anybody that wants to show up is welcome to get involved and listen, because I think it's something very special.
And Bill, let me ask you, as I tuned into your program last night, All Things Brunswick focuses on things related to Brunswick County. From a local and statewide perspective. By the way, you're knocking it out of the park on Tuesdays. I got to say, if folks want to get in the know as far as things going on in and around Brunswick County, Tuesdays from 6 to 7 p.m., Bill Moore, his colleague Joe Hunting, host their show, and they've been doing so for the last couple of weeks. Are you feeling like you're settling in a little bit, getting your feet underneath you as you go on that 1 hour journey each week on Tuesdays?
Yes, we're both much more relaxed with doing the show with each other. And it's really, we're enjoying the fact that we're bringing some information to not only Brunswick, but some of what we talk about is actually applicable to the region. So it's worth listening and tuning in on. I know that, for example, we just finished a discussion last night on scams and what goes on, and that applies to anybody in the region. And there's a replay of it Sunday at 7 if you want to hear it, people. And, of course, you can go to our Facebook site and the Big Talker site, and the show's there at any given time. This coming week, we're going to be discussing homeless and how to help homeless people both in New Hanover and in Brunswick. So it should be an interesting show.
And Bill, with that said, you're very free-flowing, and as you mentioned, you and Joe bounce off each other great alongside your guests. With all of that said, are there a few things, and I've heard that there are a few things coming up in Brunswick County as we turn our attention to the month of July? If you can remember those things offhand, please give us some information on how people can get involved in many of the different things that you've got going on with the Brunswick GOP and All Things Brunswick.
Well, I would say the first thing, the big thing coming up is the 10th of July when we're doing a celebration of freedom at the headquarters, starting between noon and 3 o'clock. It's absolutely free hot dogs, free sodas. There'll be politicians there to talk and listen to. It'd be a good time to just talk to people. And I believe there's someone that might be close to me coming to actually help co-host it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. A little birdie has told me this.
Yeah, I heard that's going to happen. Also, on the 17th of July, if you live in Brunswick or even New Hanover, and you're Republican and you want to consider running for office, we're hosting a session on being a candidate. We have Becky Gray coming in from John Locke, who's going to talk about the economics for the local and the state area for a candidate to understand. And then we're going to follow that with the last hour with elected officials from Brunswick just sitting up there and talking about what it was like to campaign, what they expected, what they didn't expect. So that's going to be an interesting show. I think people should try to get there and get involved. If you want to change things and you're thinking about running, just all you need to do is get in touch with me, BillMoore622@gmail.com. Tell me you're coming, because I just got to know I get the right number of handouts and things like that. And then again on the 31st, we are doing a Dogs for Donation. We're going to try and raise awareness for the homeless and raise some funds and some materials for them. More information will be coming out on that later. And then on the 7th of August, Steve Barger, who's a school board member, is hosting a meeting to discuss CRT, and he actually has people from the Claremont Foundation coming down, because it's a national group to discuss CRT. In addition to that, we have, again, John Locke will be sending an expert over to talk more regional about CRT. So that's a little bit of what's going on in Brunswick in the future.
Man, it's good to have this source of information here on the Big Talker FM, because we know we've got so many different listeners and supporters who tune in each morning and throughout the broadcast day from across the river. And a great idea that you brought to us, Bill. And what do you know now? 3 weeks into your new program, All Things Brunswick, Tuesdays from 6 until 7 p.m. Bill, thanks a lot, and we'll actually be talking with you again tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it.
See you then. Bye-bye now.
And we'll also be speaking with Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson during Thursday's program as well. That's our friend Bill Moore with the Brunswick GOP. All Things Brunswick. Again, conversations focused on issues surrounding Brunswick County. Tuesdays from 6 until 7 p.m. On the 10th, I'll be down at the Brunswick GOP headquarters to celebrate, freedom, independence, hear from some of our elected officials at the local and state levels, and we'll be a part of that effort on the 10th of July from noon until 3 p.m., so make plans to join us in a couple of weeks. We're 14 minutes in front of the hour as we round out our program here, Wednesday edition of the show. As we remind you, the date is June 30th, 2021. We have women with male parts winning beauty pageants in places like the state of Nevada. We have, women going ballistic as women with male parts move through a women's-only spa with nothing but their birthday suit. We can bring you that audio if you'd like. Or I think when we get back, we'll highlight, the frustration that law enforcement has all across the country, and a passionate plea by the chief of police in Oakland, California this week as his city council cuts millions of dollars of funding towards his department. Citing all the crime numbers over the past year, Oakland Police Chief LaRon Armstrong spoke after his city council voted to cut millions of dollars away from his department's budget amid the crime surge. Then you've got people like the Chicago mayor. Go look it up yourself. She's telling us, in fact, that crime is down in her city. It's on the decline. Well, that's not what the numbers say, Mayor Lightfoot. That's not what law enforcement is telling us. In fact, in Northern California this week, armed robbers held up a TV news crew during an interview about the city's crime wave, which has seen a 90% spike in murders as it works to defund its police department by over $18 million. You would think liberals from all over the country would be flocking to a place like California by tens of millions. I mean, it's everything they've ever wanted and have pushed for the past 5 decades, but for some odd reason, they are fleeing from utopia. You have to ask yourself, why is that?
This is the rhythm of the night, oh yeah, the rhythm of the night. This is the rhythm of my life, oh yeah, the rhythm of my life.
I'm Mark Allen, and this is Radio Free Dixie. In 1924, the United States Congress, by unanimous vote, approved the minting of a $50 coin displaying the images of Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. On the reverse side of the coin, we read, Memorial to the Valor of the Soldiers of the South. Since then, the United States Post Office has issued numerous postage stamps honoring the Confederacy's president and the military leaders. The Sons of Confederate Veterans are dedicated to honoring all America's veterans, including Confederate veterans. Learn more about your heritage and the Sons of Confederate Veterans at MakeDixieGreatAgain.org. That's MakeDixieGreatAgain.org. Join with us today.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly overregulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune into Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Start off today by saying that I'm challenged by the decisions that were made on Thursday around the budget for the city of Oakland, particularly for the Oakland Police Department. But today we find ourselves in a crisis. We find ourselves reeling from a weekend of violence where we've seen 4 homicides over a 3-day period. It now has us currently at 65 homicides for the year. It's a 90% increase compared to last year. Our shootings are up over 70% this year. Our robberies are up 11% this year. It's been 1,300 robberies in this city already this year. Our carjackings are up nearly 88%. So we see clearly that crime is out of control in the city of Oakland, and our response was for less police resources. I want to address a comment that was made by one of our city leaders during these budget meetings. It was referred to as a bump in the road, a speed bump, that we would go through a period where there would be speed bumps and there would be challenges and things may not go right, but we would be okay. Well, for me, those speed bumps are 65 lives so far this year. Victims who have suffered at the hands of violence, whether it's shootings, robberies, carjackings, sexual assaults. All of these crimes are not speed bumps. These are people. Far too often in these meetings, we are talking about numbers. We are talking about money and cost. I don't know what the cost of a life is, but I know not having resources makes our city less safe. It concerns me that we would ever consider that to be a bump in the road. That when you look at this screen and you see these are true people. These are people who lost their lives in this city. The violence that impacts our community every day. When I go to scenes and I meet with mothers and family members, they're not talking about numbers. They're talking about their children. This is my god sister. That means something to me. Saturday night, I went out to a scene of a young man that lost his life. And a lady yelled out the window, "Do something about it." Without the resources, it makes it challenging to make Oakland safe. And more families find themselves dealing with trauma, find themselves dealing with putting the pieces together. When the yellow tape is gone and when the streets are cleaned up, there is still hurt and pain and tragedy in our community. I hope that we can put politics aside and put public safety first. Put people's lives first before political agendas. I'm not a politician. My job is to keep the city of Oakland safe. That's what I'm here for.
Just a quick reminder out there for the fools who feel we're moving in the right direction when we talk about defunding law enforcement at the tune of $18.5 million, like city council members in Oakland, California voted on this week. No, the wealthy white suburbanites are not the ones who have to deal with the consequences of eliminating the presence of law enforcement in our crime-ravaged cities. Now, the people who echo sorts of sentiments along those lines, they're protected. They're living behind the gated communities. Recent survey finds that 80% of black Americans want more police, not less, in their neighborhoods. You'd figure you'd hear from some of these people on the nightly news. Remember, the media, those who are praising communism just days before our nation's independence. No, that media, they only give the voice to a very tiny minority, and they just put it on repeat over and over and over again. All they're doing is parroting the same talking points day in and day out with the hope that, they're able to brainwash you to believe in their way of thinking, to prop up their interests, not yours. They don't represent the masses throughout the country, a very small percentage. Remember that. They're not your friends, folks. Defund the police is mindless. Promoting policies that are opposed to the interests of all citizens in our nation, no matter what you look like or where you come from. We can work on making better use of public funds when it comes to law enforcement, hashing out, different ways to approach the situations of the day. But this blanket idea that we need to defund or limit law enforcement or work to pull funding away from, this is a new bill in the House of Representatives up in Congress this week, wanting to defund, immigration enforcement. Go look it up if you don't believe me. Tomorrow morning, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson going to join us. We'll also hear from the Southeast Republican Men's Association. A few things going on here locally, of course, that we'll get to. We thank State Senator Michael Lee for joining us earlier today, along with Chase Roth and Rob Renz. Very detailed discussion, of course, of their testimony last week up in Raleigh surrounding support for a proposal supported by Senator Lee and Senator Bill Rabon of Brunswick County in regards to legalization of medical cannabis. 36 other states have moved down that pathway, and as Senator Lee pointed out, along with Chase and Rob, a very defined piece of legislation that will get a vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee later on this afternoon. Well, I got to play tomorrow, I think, the viral video, and maybe you've already heard it, about this woman who took her kids or her daughters to a spa for a few hours, and I talked about it a while back earlier this morning. I want to get a few hours of relaxation in a women's section of a spa, and the vibe quickly changed when the woman with male parts entered the room and decided that he was going to stripped naked. And then the place of business, you'd figure, would say, all right, enough of that. Let's get you out of here. Well, the business and the owners of this business actually defending the woman with male parts as the conversation quickly became very heated because this woman and her daughters were obviously distraught by what she and her kids just witnessed. Again, we'll close the broadcast with the way in which we started. 5 clowns on the bozo-meter for ABC News, praising the Chinese Communist Party this week, just days ahead of our nation's Independence Day. And the fact that we've got places across the country where you'd figure this way of life would be attracting tens of millions of people who echo, I guess, this way of life, yet many people are fleeing utopia. Folks have had enough, and we're starting to see it all across the nation, people standing up and speaking out. I guess it only took a year of being locked down by the government for folks to come to their senses. We will talk to you tomorrow. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson going to highlight the guest list when he joins us in the third and final hour. Have a great day. Be safe out there.
Keeping Leland informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Demand. It's very easy to lose your cool in Seattle.
We went to a couple different places looking for air conditioning units, and they were sold out everywhere.
President Biden meets today with Western state governors to talk about the extreme weather conditions.
With more than 90% of the American West in a drought, the president is bringing together governors from affected states along with cabinet officials and private-public partners. They'll discuss what the White House describes as the devastating intersection of drought, heat, and wildfires. Today's meeting comes as the Pacific Northwest heat wave is shattering records and where fire crews have been positioned in high-risk areas. Greg Clugston, Washington.
New York City's Democratic mayoral primary thrown into disarray. Election officials retracting their latest report on the vote count after realizing it was tainted by test data. 135,000 ballots never cleared from the computer system. Wall Street, the Dow is up 81 points, and NASDAQ down 36 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Let's be boring and do a commercial about cash-out refinances. It's Ryan, and our mortgage team will often have a listener say, I think I understand what a cash-out refinance is, but can't that be bad for you sometimes? So let's hit on that. As with anything, it's certainly not the right move for everyone. If we don't have to, we don't want to add a bunch of years onto our loan, or increase our monthly payment too much, or pay more in the long run. But because home values have skyrocketed so far up the last few years, while rates have come so far down, we've seen many scenarios where listeners today can pull out a significant chunk of money from the new value in their home, while lowering the years on the overall loan, while lowering their monthly payment, and lowering how much they ultimately pay. The key